Poa sana, hali gani? Kabisa.
Tuomba sauti ama tutaweka mic huko.
Luncheon. Ikawa kitu asante. Itabidi maisha tu hapo. Sawa.
Is that the guy?
Hata ikiwa hapo inachukua sauti.
Nachukua sauti. Nachukua sauti.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. I request that we arise for the national anthem. The national anthem is pre-recorded, but we will sing along. So technical team, you can proceed. Kenya yangu naipenda, nachukia ufisadi, waharibu nchi yetu, tuangamize ufisadi. Kenya yangu, ngao yangu, naupinga ufisadi, tuangombali ushambali, tuangamize ufisadi. Tangu wananchi, tudumishe maadili, tufanyapo kazi zetu, tuangamize ufisadi. Nia na sababu na uwezo nazo mbinu, tuungane sisi sote, tuangamize ufisadi. Sababu na uwezo nazo mbinu, tuungane sisi sote, tuangamize ufisadi. Na sababu na uwezo nazo mbinu, tuungane sisi sote, tuangamize ufisadi. Thank you. We may remain standing for a word of prayer. Our prayer will be led this morning by Madam Faith Nyeve, Assistant Director, Civil Education and Asset Recovery, EACC.
Let us believe and pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we are so grateful this morning for the gift of life and the gift of good health. Thank you, Lord, for gathering us here this morning, O Lord, to deliberate on issues that affect our nation. As the deliberations go on, we commit each and every one of us, and particularly our speakers, our leaders, into your hands, that you may give them wisdom and guidance so that they may assist us to achieve our objectives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. We may have our seats. The chairperson EACC and the president of the Kenya Editors Guild, the CEO EACC, the CEO of Kenya Editors Guild, commissioners of EACC, distinguished senior editors, senior staff of EACC, good morning. We are going to start our program, but before we start our program, it is important that we just know who is in the room. So I'm going to lead in just a short introduction for purposes of just knowing who is in the room. I will do the EACC side and invite Madam Rosalia Omundo, the CEO of EACC, to come and lead the introductions. Of the Kenya Editors Guild. Thank you. I will invite the CEO of the Kenya Editors Guild to also introduce the team from the Kenya Editors Guild. So allow me to recognize and introduce the chairperson of EACC, Dr. David Oginde. You will be speaking to us. Welcome, chairperson. Allow me to recognize and introduce Commissioner Alfred Mushimba, Kano retired, EACC. Allow me to recognize and introduce Commissioner Dr. Cecilia Mutuku, EACC. Allow me to recognize and introduce Commissioner CPA John Ogalo. Allow me to recognize and introduce the Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of the EACC, Mr. Abdi Mahmoud. Allow me to recognize and introduce the directors of EACC who are present. Director Vincent Okongo is the Director in charge of Preventive Services. Director Pascal Muel, Director Investigations. Director Joel Mukumu, Director Finance and Planning. Jackson Mue speaking, Director Field Services and Coordination. Some of our directors are not here. Allow me again to recognize the regional managers of EACC. EACC has 11 regional offices spread all over the country. The 11 regional managers are in the house. Regional managers, you can just stand. Thank you, regional managers. And now allow me to recognize heads of departments and senior officers from EACC present. Heads of departments. Thank you. Allow me to recognize other colleagues from EACC who are assisting in this function. Thank you. So chairperson and the President Editors Guild, that is the team from EACC. And I now want to invite Madam Rosalia Omugo to come and do a similar thing for the Kenya Editors Guild. Welcome, Rosalia.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning once again. As the first speaker for this session, allow me to say welcome to the press club of the Kenya Editors Guild, and the protocols having been established on the side of the EACC, allow me then to recognize the presence of the members from the media. I'll begin by the President of Kenya Editors Guild, Ms. Zubeida Kananu. the Chief Executive Officer of the Media Council of Kenya, Mr. Moyo, the President of the African Editors Forum, Mr. Churchill Otieno, the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists, Mr. Eric Udwor, right, the Editor-in-Chief, they'll be joining us in a while, the Editor-in-Chief of the Nation Media Group, Mr. Joe Ageyo, the President of the Crime Journalists Association of Kenya, Mr. Joseph Muraya, the Secretary General of the Court Reporters Association of Kenya, Mr. Sam Kiplagat, members of the Executive Council of Kenya Editors Guild present. We have Millicent Awor, who represents Executive Council Television, and she's also the Editor-in-Chief, Assistant Editor-in-Chief of Kenya Editors Guild, Millicent Awor. Clap for her, please. We have Topista Nabusoba. She represents the Executive Council Radio. Thank you. We also have distinguished members of Kenya Editors Guild. Kindly rise so that we see you. All members of the Guild and staff of the Secretariat. Please stand, all of you, so that we see you. One more time, kindly. We are the hosts. Yeah, so let's be like hosts. Thank you very much. And then we also have members of the Crime Journalists Association of Kenya. Thank you very much for acknowledging the invite. And members of the Court Reporters Association of Kenya. And then members of the media covering, thank you very much for honoring our invite today. We also have, as part of Kenya Editors Guild, our mandate is to promote trainings. We are reaching out to the next generation of editors, and therefore we make it intentional in all our meetings to invite students in the journalism schools so that they learn even as they are in school. So we invited students from the journalism school. Kindly stand so that we acknowledge you. Thank you very much for acknowledging our invite. Allow me then to give a short introduction about the work of Kenya Editors Guild, because not everybody in the room knows our programmatic area. The Guild is the foremost professional association for editors in Kenya, and it exists to promote professionalism and excellence in journalism. The members currently stand at 300, who include senior editors in television, print, academia, radio, and digital. And Kenya Editors Guild executes its work through a secretariat headed by myself and 5 staff who do the day-to-day running to ensure that programs are delivered to members. Our work cuts across key thematic areas. Press Club Luncheons, which we are hosting today, is part of our advocacy, as well as membership development initiative, which offers an opportunity for networking and also serves as a platform to allow editors to interact with policymakers and also to allow the key policymakers to articulate some of the work affecting their sectors. In contributing to development of the media industry, we undertake training of the next generation of editors through mentorships, and this is done in collaboration with the journalism schools. With the mission of promoting professionalism and excellence in journalism, we are committed to bridging the gap between academia and industry, and that is why we endeavor to incorporate journalism students in all our activities, just like we are doing today. As editors, we engage with community through taking the media to the people, and these meetings have helped to demystify the work of editors. We look forward to partnership with the EACC and embarking on some of these initiatives together. While our work as a media association cuts across Kenya, we have also established collaborations with media associations in Kenya, and Kenya Editors Guild is a co-convener of the Kenya Media Sector Working Group. And this is a coalition of key media actors bringing together media associations and also civil society organizations, and they convene to deliberate on the operating environment of media, guided by Articles 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37 of the Constitution, which speak to freedoms of expression, media, access to information, and the assembly respectively. The Guild is also reaches out to members in the Eastern Africa Editors region as an association that leads the way for the region, and therefore we are also part of the Eastern Africa Editors Society. Through the policy and research and advocacy, we have addressed issues, and we hope that we will raise some of them in this session. And we look forward to having a great session, and we look forward to great deliberations. I thank you. Right, you can clap. And then it is my pleasure now to welcome the President of Kenya Editors Guild, Ms. Zubeida Kananu, to take over from the session. Karibu sana.
Asante Rosalia. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to see you. Are you happy to see me? Asante sana. You look amazing. Thank you so much for making time to be here. As introduced, my name is Zubeida Kananu. I'm the president of Kenya Editors Guild and also an editor and news anchor at Standard Media Group. And it's my honor to invite you all to feel at home today. And thank you so much to EACC for collaborating with us. Not once, not twice, several times. And we say asante sana. Before I present my remarks this morning, please allow me to invite us to stand in honor of our colleagues who we lost this year. We've lost Njoroge Moura, we lost Frederick Parsayo, and Nick Mudimba, who will be laid to rest on Saturday. So please let's stand for a moment of silence in honor of our colleagues. Asanteni sana. May their souls rest in peace. It's very hard to lose a loved one. Lakini tunasema kazi ya Mungu haina makosa. Hiyo ndio safari yetu sote. May God comfort all of us. Najua tunahisi kwamba tumepungukiwa. This afternoon we will have the mass at Holy Family. So those of us who can make it to Holy Family at 2:00, please let's meet there for the mass in honor of Nick Mudimba. So Mungu azidi kuzipa nguvu familia zao. Ni wakati mgumu sana. Ni wakati mgumu sana. So, and I would appeal to all of us to keep checking on each other all the time. You know, you might assume that somebody is okay and maybe they are not okay wherever they are. So please let's keep checking on each other. We know Sophie is also unwell. Please let's keep her in prayer. Let's support her in whatever way we can. Sindio? So before I share my remarks, please allow me to invite Churchill Otieno to say a word. He's the president of the Africa Editors Forum. Next month, he decided to take us to Morocco. I don't know how the plans are going or whether we should all accompany him to Morocco, what will be happening there, and what exactly you feel about the fight against corruption in the country. Please help me invite or welcome Churchill Otieno.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And indeed, you're very, very welcome to Morocco and all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, good morning. As you've been told, my name is Churchill Otieno. And I'm happy to see faces of many people I consider friends. Some whom have been hiding from me, like Bishop here. You can run, but you can't hide successfully. And Joe Ageo here. I bring greetings from across Africa And I bring greetings with one message when you look at the intersection of media, or to be exact, journalism and corruption. It is both a pleasure and a critical moment to be with you today, discussing how we can recalibrate the fight against corruption by strengthening one of its most potent allies, investigative journalism. I speak to you today as the President of the Africa Editors Forum, representing editors across our continent who are deeply invested in public interest journalism. Investigative journalism is not just a profession, it is indeed a public service. Across Africa, journalists have uncovered theft, exposed cartels, and held powerful actors accountable. In Kenya, some of the biggest corruption scandals, from Anglo leasing, as you may know, to the NYS, that I believe many of us are familiar with, have come to public light because of courageous, relentless investigative reporting. This work, Bishop and your team, complements the Commission's mandate. While the Commission and the courts pursue legal redress, the media informs, sensitizes, and keeps public pressure alive. Without journalism, corruption will thrive in the shadows. From an intellectual standpoint, journalism, particularly investigative journalism, operates as a public good, much like clean water and much like our functional roads. Yet, unlike other public goods, journalism is grossly underfunded. It remains fragile and is increasingly dependent on a shrinking commercial base or commercial revenues. Why is this important? It is important because we must speak of sustainability of the anti-corruption agenda. We must consider the ecosystem that enables corruption and also the ecosystem that enables the fight against corruption. You cannot sustain public accountability if you do not sustain public interest journalism. You cannot. And all of us must be alive to that fact. By reinvesting a portion of recovered funds into media development through independent, transparent mechanisms, we shall reinforce the epistemic infrastructure that drives anti-corruption outcomes. I say that again, the Africa Editors Forum, the Editors of Africa, is inviting those who are in the fight against corruption that some of these recoveries must of necessity be reinvested to help in the fight against corruption that is done by courageous which places duty on the Commission to promote public awareness and to promote civic education on these matters. What better way to fulfill this obligation than by partnering with journalists to tell the stories that matter, to tell stories that matter, but tell them in a way that, in a manner that is well-resourced, that is evidence-based, and promotes the truth, no matter where it leads us. We propose the establishment of a media sustainability fund for investigative journalism. And we believe this fund should be financed, at least in part, through a small percentage of recovered corruption proceeds. Just last November, I believe, or October, we saw EACC give out a 5 billion Kenya shilling check. A portion of that 5 billion would go a long way in making sure the fight against corruption, as participated in by investigative journalism, continues. This will be aligned, such a fund will be aligned with existing legal principles and could be administered independently to ensure integrity and non-interference. But we could also find fairly sound economic arguments that support ensuring that journalism is funded from the public funds. First is that the cost of corruption in Kenya, as we all know, is astronomical. Estimates have been given of hundreds of billions of Kenya shillings that we lose annually to corruption. So when we recover portions of this money, they shouldn't all go to Treasury. I think the gallant fighters against corruption in the name of investigative journalism must be supported in that. Supporting investigative journalism, ladies and gentlemen, is a form of insurance for all of us. It is proactive rather than reactive, and every shilling spent on investigative capacity could potentially save millions in leakages and ghost projects or procurement fraud that we all are aware of. It's for this reason that the Africa Editors Forum urges that those in power, those in authority, our legislators, but more importantly, editors in positions of responsibility, as Madam President here and you are here, that we find supporters and we find ways to create laws to enable and ensure that recoveries from corruption, portions of them are used in the fight, are used to support investigative journalism. I thank you and I'm happy to be here.
Asante sana, Churchill. When we talk about corruption, the people at the heart of it are crime reporters and court reporters. So please allow me to invite Sam Kiplagat, Chair of Court Reporters, and Joseph Muraya, Chair of Crime Reporters Association, to share their experience. How has it been for them covering stories on corruption? Please come and say a word. Asante sana. And what you would want done differently. Yeah. Tumkaribishe tafadhali.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joseph Muraya, EACC Chairperson, CEO, Media Council of Kenya CEO, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues from Crime Journalists Association of Kenya, good morning. Mine will be very brief. When she mentioned I have a few points to share, I decided I'm going to share an anecdote, a real story. As we talk, one of our colleagues is here because the association paid, I think, a 50,000 cash bail because he's being forced to reveal a source of who gave some very, he had this good story about corruption, and he intended to do it. He didn't manage to do it, but still he's being pursued to reveal the source of the story. And that's the reality of a crime reporter, an investigative journalist. We are the foot soldiers who interact with this information mostly at the first stage. And as Mr. Churchill has said, the threats to our lives can be dire. We have our colleague there. So what we need is, one, we need access to information. We need protection, and protection should come not only from the authorities, but also from seniors, the Kenya editors. So I think that's the much I can say. But this is a timely conversation, and more so now when the association is turning 4 years. So we'll be here to support you guys and to work with you. Thank you.
Asante sana. I hope we are taking notes. Bwana Chairman, CEO, I hope we are taking notes and we are ready and willing to support our teams and add these stories on corruption. And from the courts, is the chair here or someone from the courts to share their experience? Court reporters? Asante sana. Tumkaribishe tafadhali.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Brian Wasuna. I'm a reporter with the Nation Media Group. I'll be standing in for Sankey Plagat. He's our secretary. So it goes without saying, the EACC is at the forefront of this fight against corruption. And ultimately, most of these cases end up in court in one way or another, be it criminal proceedings or assets recovery. And so far, the relationship has actually been relatively good, I think, with the court reporters. But we would like to request for a bit more access, especially at the investigative stage, where perhaps applications for investigations and assets freeze have been given. We would appreciate if there would be more collaboration on this, because sometimes we have information, but it's just partial. We don't have the full picture. So I think more collaboration on this is possible. I think there's also room for a lot of training, particularly so that we can understand the side of EACC. Then EACC can also understand the side of journalists. That way I think we can move together and not just sensitize the public, but maybe act as a deterrent to those who want to engage in corruption. I think that's all we have to say for now. Thank you.
Asante sana. I've seen the director investigations taking notes, and I'm sure he's going to implement this. That's a promise. I'm holding you to account. And please let's share contacts so that we can reach out to each other as we tell these stories, and let's support our teams as much as possible, yeah? So SG, has he come? Eric Odwo? Okay, as we wait for him, please, because in the interest of time, allow me to adopt the protocols already established and get straight to my remarks. It's a good morning, and it's great and pleasure to welcome you to this important engagement between the Kenya Editors Guild and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. We appreciate the presence of the EACC leadership and your commitment to working with the media in the fight against corruption, particularly in the critical area of asset recovery. Corruption continues to drain public resources, crippling service delivery and deepening inequality in our country. While various institutions, including the EACC, have made significant strides in combating this vice, the scale of financial misconduct remains alarming. Billions of shillings meant to develop and for development are stolen, yet only a small fraction is ever recovered. This calls for a stronger, more coordinated approach between investigative agencies and the media to track, expose, and recover stolen public assets. The role of the media in uncovering corruption and illicit financial flows cannot be overstated. However, investigative and crime reporters often face numerous challenges, as they've said, including legal threats, lack of access to crucial data, and personal security risks. To enhance the effectiveness of corruption reporting, we propose deeper collaboration with the EACC in the following areas: training journalists on investigative and crime reporting. The EACC can play a key role in equipping journalists, especially crime and investigative reporters, with skills to track financial crimes, understand asset recovery mechanisms, interpret legal documents, and report accurately on corruption cases. Training on digital forensics, data journalism, and financial crime investigations will enhance media capacity to hold power to account. 2, strengthening investigative and fact-checking desks. To enhance media oversight, the Kenya Editors Guild is advocating for stronger investigative desks and dedicated fact-checking units in our newsrooms. We propose that a portion, as Churchill mentioned earlier, of the recovered assets be allocated to support investigative journalism, ensuring that corruption stories are well researched, backed by evidence, and impactful. 3, facilitating access to information and evidence. Investigative journalism thrives on access to credible and verifiable data. The EACC should establish formal information sharing channels with journalists, ensuring that corruption cases, asset recovery efforts, and financial misconduct investigations are backed by facts. Transparency and timely access to information will enhance media reporting and public confidence in anti-corruption efforts. Recovering stolen public assets is only part of the solution. Ensuring these resources are used for the public good is equally important. Kenyans need to see tangible benefits from the funds and properties recovered from corrupt individuals. We urge the EACC to ensure transparency in asset recovery and utilization. The public must be informed about what has been recovered, how much has been returned, and where these resources are being channeled. A publicly accessible database detailing recovered assets and their location would enhance accountability and trust. 2, advocate for recovered assets to be directed toward development. Instead of these funds disappearing into bureaucratic processes, they should be strategically allocated to critical areas such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, and investigative journalism to further the fight against corruption. Strengthen oversight to prevent recovered assets from being relooted. Without proper safeguards, there are risks that recovered funds may be misappropriated again. The EACC must work with oversight bodies, the media, and civil society to track and audit the use of recovered assets to prevent further corruption. One of the greatest risks facing journalists reporting on corruption is intimidation, threats, and in extreme cases, violence. Many whistleblowers and reporters who expose corruption are forced into hiding or face legal battles aimed at silencing them. We call on our EACC to work with relevant agencies to strengthen witness protection measures. This includes extending protection mechanism to journalists covering corruption cases, ensuring their safety while reporting on high-stakes investigations. Number 2, provide legal and institutional support for journalists facing retaliation. Many journalists reporting on corruption face defamation suits, threats of arrest, or support the media, including providing expert witnesses in court, assisting in legal defense where necessary, and advocating for stronger legal protections for journalists. Number 3, develop an early warning system for journalists under threat. A formalized system where the EACC, media organizations, and security agencies can monitor and respond to threats against journalists will go a long way in ensuring press freedom is upheld. While our focus today is on asset recovery and investigative journalism, we must also address broader systematic challenges that hinder the fight against corruption. One being delayed prosecutions and weak convictions. The slow pace of corruption cases in court erodes public confidence. Stronger enforcement and accountability measures are needed to ensure that those implicated in corruption face justice. Number 2, political interference. Corruption cases should not be influenced by political alignments. We urge the EACC to maintain independence and resist pressure that compromises its work. 3, public awareness and civic engagement. The fight against corruption is not just for journalists and law enforcement. It requires public participation. The EACC and the media must work together to educate Kenyans on their role in exposing graft and supporting recovery efforts. As we hold this discussion today, we recognize that no single institution can eliminate corruption alone. The fight against graft requires collaboration between journalists, the EACC, the judiciary, and the public. The Kenya Editors Guild remains committed to working with EACC to expose corruption, recover stolen public assets, and promote accountability in governance. We look forward to building a structured partnership where journalists are empowered, protected, and supported in reporting corruption cases without fear. Thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to a productive engagement and solutions, possible solutions to end corruption in our country. Asanteni sana for your time. Now allow me to invite my senior, the Editor-in-Chief, Nation Media Group, Joe Ageo, to give the inside take. Asanteni sana.
I'm in an interesting situation because Zubeida is my boss at the Kenya Editors Guild, and she alleges that I am her senior in some respects. I am happy to be here. Bishop, it's good to see you. Unlike Churchill, I do not think you're hiding from me. Anytime someone says a bishop is hiding from him, I think we need to be particularly worried about that person. I did have some presentation which I will try to go through. I don't know who is going to be in trouble if I said I only learned yesterday that I'm supposed to do what I'm doing now. But there is a certain age you get to where you just start to speak your mind, irregardless, as someone used to say. So what we have basically here should be pretty obvious that, you know, when people steal, that they shouldn't really benefit from what they have stolen, isn't it? I mean, that's something that we can all agree on. Usually the things that are most obvious tend to be more difficult then to resolve, because many times we have simple solutions. But I think the whole idea of recovering assets that have been stolen from the public is noble. And I think that we are here trying to figure out how then that can benefit the people is pretty interesting. And as journalists, we are particularly interested in that because if the money was good in the first place, when it comes back, it's still as good, it's still enticing, which means that the people who stole it or the people who learned from them can steal it again, isn't it? And therefore, it doesn't mean that the level of vigilance goes down because the money is now back. And I think for us as public watchdogs, that becomes an extremely important thing for us. So the big question, of course, when corruption strikes, because sometimes people have said we baptize it, but it's really theft. So when public resources are stolen, it's not just money that is stolen, it is people's opportunities, it's people's lives. These are hospitals that should have been built, children would have had books in their schools, and all kinds of public benefits that are then forfeited unfairly because some people chose to line their own pockets with this kind of money. And of course, the EACC has given us reports around the tremendous amount of work that they are doing in this regard to try and bring this money back home. But because many times it is stolen and then taken elsewhere. But even when it is here, the question becomes, then what? Once it has been recovered. And I think the bottom line really ought to be that recovered assets ought to then benefit the public. And I think why this is truly important to find new uses for this money is to make sure that it is not relooted through mismanagement. I think some of my colleagues have already alluded to that this money comes back and then it is vulnerable one more time. But then also, this idea strengthens the public's trust in anti-corruption efforts. When people hear that money has been brought back, that is really important because many times we say, okay, once it's been stolen, it goes. I remember as a young journalist, one of the most intriguing things of our world those days, and I think it's probably the case now, but those days there used to be a lot of bank robberies where some people would go into a bank, shoot in the air, ask everybody to lie down, and then there would be a getaway car out there, and then the police would be in hot pursuit. That is what they used to say. And then the police would arrest some people, but somehow the guy with the money is always the one who escaped. So and then they will say, we are doing everything we can to find that person. So getting money that has been stolen is often one of the most difficult things. And I think whenever you get a report that has been brought back, then that becomes heartening. And then I would also look at just a few things that people have done in terms of just getting this money back into public causes. Is ring-fenced, it is properly managed so that it goes back into these public services. Strengthening the capacity of anti-corruption. Also, ways now in which technology is making it easier to track these monies. And the flip side, of course, is that technology is also making it easier for us to know whether that money is disappearing once again. And I think investing in that kind of capacity is extremely useful. Community-based programs, some of this money, when we devolved our government, I think it's been said many times that we also devolved corruption. So whereas corruption used to repose in this big behemoth called the national government, now we have many 47 plus 1 governments out there, and that culture that came from Nairobi, I think, has been devolved and in many cases multiplied out there when it goes to the counties. And I think there ought to be a mechanism through which the money goes back to where it was stolen. If it was stolen in Mandera County, it should go back to Mandera and do some things in Mandera. I think that is something that would be useful. And one of the things that I really want to double click on, which I think two of my bosses, Churchill and Zubeida, have alluded to, is this whole idea of supporting media, independent journalism, using some of these monies that have been stolen. And we have talked about a media sustainability fund that then helps to ensure that the ends of journalism, which I think dovetail very well with what EACC and other anti-corruption agencies are trying to do, are met. That is what I'll be talking a little bit about, because a strong media, strong independent media. Many of you know the media is in a lot of problems, I would say, and I'll explain in a minute. But a strong media would help to, for instance, expose the loopholes through which this money can be rerouted, but also it can help to sustain the public trust. And also the engagement, the pressure. When members of the public have a good sense of what is happening, then they are able to hold their leaders to account better. And that is part of the role that we play. So there have been efforts out there to try and put money that's recovered into public use, and many anti-corruption practitioners in the room, many journalists who would be well familiar with some of these cases, and so I'll not dwell too much on them, but just to emphasize two things. I think in Nigeria, there are Bacha billions. People have talked about them for years, and whereas it was seen as a big success in terms of efforts to bring money back to the countries where it was stolen from, the big question that remains to date is, where is that money? What did it really do? The government has said, oh yeah, we used this amount to build this and the other, but until now, the current president of Nigeria is still having to answer questions about where this money really went. And for me, that is to say that the whole question of transparency, once this money is recovered, is extremely important, whether they are the assets, the kind of bank accounts frozen, buildings seized, and those kinds of things, what truly happens, and how much does the public know about what happens to these things. Because I think for as long as there are questions that linger about public resources of any nature, then the public trust dips in the institutions that are charged with these responsibilities. And if EACC, for example, loses public trust, I don't know where the last time you checked where it was, but but if that is the case, then you know it's a lost cause before you even start, because then the people would help you, the whistleblowers, everybody grows cold feet. And so I think it's really important. Two things I wanted to emphasize. One is that whole question of transparency. The second one, in the US, they've always had something that they call kleptocracy, asset recovery team, but now the new Attorney General has disbanded that team. Now that's to say that all of these efforts are always susceptible to political interference and all of these things. So what kind of mechanisms do we put in place to ring fence, to make all this process independent? Is it a certain independent fund that this money goes into that therefore kind of shields it from the whimsical decisions that may be made from one administration to another, for instance? So back to what I think I am most interested in, and for purposes of this meeting, which is the whole question of media sustainability. So the media is a watchdog in exposing corruption. One of the most fascinating things that I have learned throughout my years in journalism, that the people who steal don't want people to know they're stealing. You know, that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah? Have you ever seen anyone say like, yeah, I stole that money, that was great. And even when they're taken to court, they cover their faces, they try to get some hoodies, and so you can't recognize who they are, isn't it? So that means that anytime corruption is exposed, you are that much reducing the chances of people engaging in it. Because there's nobody who is proud, publicly proud of corruption. They'll brag to their friends in bars and other places. But when it is out there for everybody to see, so even the people who are most corrupt would want to tell you that they are anti-corruption crusaders. And therefore, the role of exposing corruption that the media does is extremely important. And therefore, it is in our best collective interest to make sure that the media continues to thrive. Now, at the moment, the media is dealing with serious financial struggles. This is partly because of just the evolution of that space, the disruption that has happened because of the advent of different types of technologies. And it takes time for any industry to recalibrate and to get its balance. And I think that opportunity has been taken very deftly by people who are interested in a weak media. That would explain all the conversations we've had about government advertising, all the campaigns we have seen to delegitimize the media on social media. You must have heard about Githeri media and all of this. This is part of a global trend of trying to delegitimize independent journalism so that it does not have the stature that it has, and therefore is not believed when it exposes those who are in power and those who are happy to dip their fingers in the public till. Then, of course, there's the question of political and commercial influence that always compromises the freedom of the media. And we have said it, that a sustainable press ensures accountability and transparency. So just a bit of the mechanics. If you were to imagine a media sustainability fund, what would that look like? I think it is important for us to think about some of the building blocks. I know Churchill Otieno gave a very good overview of what some of the justifications would be from a legal standpoint, going through our constitutional provisions that privilege things like access to information, freedom of the media, and that sort of thing. He also went through some economic justifications. And I think there are even philosophical justifications, which I will touch on a bit. But this media sustainability fund would be a dedicated fund and partly financed by these recovered assets, managed through an independent board. One could think about this, bringing together different representations to ensure that it is transparent, it is above board. And then it will go into things like investigative journalism, training, and general newsroom sustainability. Now, if you were to think about our society, I think Sometimes there's a big question as to why we would use public resources to fund journalism that is done by private individuals. I think tied to that question at the very basic level is what Churchill talked about. Why is journalism really, apart from the legal profession, the only profession that is mentioned in a constitution, and the constitution is elaborate about the need for this thing called media to thrive? Because it goes to the very heart, to the very foundation of a democratic society. And over the years, different people, different philosophers have even grappled with this idea of democracy and how free speech and just a free flow of ideas then help to keep society healthy. One could think about the social contract. All of us talk about the social contract many times. The politicians like to talk about it until they have to do it. But from a philosophical standpoint, if we were to look at government as then part of this social contract, Jean-Jacques Rousseau talked about this whole idea that governments derive their legitimacy from the people. And therefore, these people expect a certain amount of transparency, accountability, and even the service that they get. And I think that because journalism serves as a watchdog, it ensures that the government upholds its end of that contract. And therefore, if you were to think about the fact that corruption distorts that arrangement, weakens governance institutions, diverting public resources and that sort of thing, then surely restoring these through funding journalism generally aligns with the broader ideas about strengthening democracy. So one could look at it from that perspective. I mean, there are also people who have talked about this idea of the marketplace of ideas, where public conversation is not dominated just by clever people and elites, that there ought to be space and room for all kinds of voices to find expression, and then society in its own way can filter what is sensible and what is not. And that is a big role that we play as the media. And I think that it is important for us to know that when this principle is violated, then there are things like capture of informational spaces, and that really becomes dangerous, because even people who steal can easily get away with what they've stolen because people can't even ask questions. Many people also think about democracy as a public good. So if there are certain people who are not able to engage in democracy, and the media is a big enabler of that, it means that even the fight against corruption becomes very difficult. So there are many ways. I mean, Churchill talked about looking at this from the legal standpoint, from the economic perspective. But I want to persuade you that even philosophically, going to the very root of this thing we call democracy, going to the very root of this thing we call governance, you will find very good reasons why it is sensible for us to think as a country and even as a continent, and Churchill is working hard on that, to make sure that we can begin to think about how to support media a lot more creatively when we start to look at it as a public good. And how this could work, we could have, like I said, a percentage allocation from recovered assets going into this media sustainability fund. There could be other sources, obviously, but this would be a critical part of it, given the reasons that I've outlined. This could support grants for investigative journalism, for example, some fellowships where journalists get to be part of some programs that build their capacity in how to deal with corruption, because corruption is not it's not very easy to trail. Brian Wasuna, my colleague who was here, does some investigative stories, and sometimes when he sits down to explain to me, my head spins because someone registers this company which has shares in the other one, and the other one has shares in 3 different companies. By the time you drill down to where that money really is, you really have to know what you are doing for you to even get it. Because I think that those who steal have become so sophisticated and they deliberately obfuscate the journeys of the monies they steal, so that you really have to be good at what you do. And that's why we talk about even things like technology that helps us to do that. And then, of course, there will have to be good oversight. I think that anytime public resources are used somewhere, or indeed anything that you're doing, there needs to be good oversight. And I think for this particularly, because there's public money involved, there will be an independent board, which I talked about earlier. So the potential impact of something like this, I think it would enhance media independence so that it is less reliant on advertising revenue and state funding, all of which come with strings attached. I think that's important. Journalists would have to worry less about financial constraints and even possible retribution. Many years as a young journalist, we used to ask only one question about a story. Is it a good story? Then we'll go and do it. Today, there's a second one, which is sort of like a trump card. You say, is it a good story? Yes. But can we afford it? No. Then we can't do it. And that is a real issue, because if you think about investigative stories, sometimes you may need to travel to far corners of the country, or sometimes even the world. You need to take a very long time to try and figure out what happened. And therefore, to have to worry about, I need to now go to Mandera. Then you get to Mandera, then you find that this guy who used to operate this thing has now migrated to some place called Luanda in Vihiga, you know, and then you go back there, then editor will start saying, then seeing a good story and not being able to do it because they can't afford. And so these are practical things that this kind of thing would help to deal with. And I think that, as I mentioned at a philosophical level, it will strengthen our democracy, because it will enable us to play a role in holding power to account. I think that where we are now, and I want to just speak about the state of the world as I understand it, and why this idea of sustaining media is truly existential. I think we are at a point where it is increasingly difficult to know what is true. Now, for society, that is really problematic. You see, there used to be a time that if I came and said, oh, by the way, the sky is blue, then people would look at me and say, okay, but it's always been blue. What's the problem? But today, that would be so important, because maybe before that, there were 5 people who had come and said that it is red. And they believe it is red. It doesn't matter even if they go outside and check if it's blue, they'll come and say it is red. And sometimes you don't understand what that is, because there's been so much pollution of the information space that now the truth has become even more precious than it once used to be. And we are seeing all around the world trends like that. We have seen populist governments come to power who ride on genuine problems of the people and create oversimplified solutions that then excite people. And for that reason, then they'll get to power. But then after that, you start seeing this concerted effort to decimate the space where meaningful conversations can happen. You've seen in this country over the years, journalists being trolled on social media, where journalists are intimidated and basically made to doubt themselves, and the entire media being lampooned for reasons that nobody understands. And you see this all around the world. It's not, by the way, to be fair, it's not just a Kenyan phenomenon. And when you get to a point where you don't know what is fake from what is true, you have seen AI, for example, has made it easier to generate perfectly fake things at breakneck speed and to scale. So basically, you can generate a lot of disinformation at the click of a button. There are people who even have websites where everything is fake. Or they take a little bit of truth and then they stretch it to the end of the world. And that is a very bad thing for the world. It's a bad thing for the country. it's a bad thing for us in the media, but it's also a very bad thing for the war on corruption, because then it is just as easy as it is to, send fake information about the color of the sky. It is just as easy for someone to say no, but those EACC people, there is some, one of them, there's a dispute, a land dispute we have in my village, that is why they are going after me, and then they'll get all kinds of people to magnify it, and before you know it, when you come, you'll be told, go and give that guy back his land. And there's nothing like that. It's just that they don't want to be held to account. They don't want to be investigated. But they're using this infrastructure, this environment that has been created by just how easy it is to pollute information to avoid accountability. And so it is in our collective interest, I think, to ensure that we restore the integrity of the information space. And this is by empowering credible voices in that space that then people can begin to rely on. In communication, they say that the credibility of the messenger is just as important as the message, if not more so. And therefore, if we are going to win this battle, it is my plea that we think about how to restore the place of independent journalism that is not jaundiced by all these other things that are going on in our society, because I think that a free press is a nation's best defense against corruption. Thank you very much.
He deserves better than that. Yeah? Asante sana, Joe. There are several takeaways from what you've said this morning, and it reminds me of the sector working group that was established 1 year ago. Churchill and I were members, and we made several recommendations to the Ministry of ICT. We don't know whether that report will ever be implemented, but we'll keep pushing, we'll keep engaging them, we're hoping that they're going to implement, because it touched on media sustainability and what needs to be done moving forward. And the question that was raised is, who funds that kitty? Where will the money come from? And Chair, CEO, you've had part of that money. Ilikuwa bilioni ngapi ya mwisho? Tuamue leo quarter ama nusu ya hiyo iende kwa court reporters and crime reporters. Si ndio? Iwasaidie waende ground. Si ndio mkuu wa Kitesh? Asante sana. Thank you so much. We hope and we believe that the solution lies here. Ni sisi tuamue tuende ground, and then we make it happen. So now, allow me to get to the tyranny of CEOs. Because when I look at this table, I felt misplaced. Because 90% of those seated here are CEOs. CEO this, CEO that, CEO, And that's why maybe it got more confused earlier. So allow me to invite the CEO, Media Council of Kenya, someone who spends sleepless nights because of the number of calls he receives daily. Our journalist has been arrested. Our journalist is being harassed. Our journalist is David Omoyo, ladies and gentlemen.
I have seen many things this year, but this morning I've seen a president who fears CEOs. That's a unique one. So, Bwana Chair EACC, and our friend for many days, Reverend Dr. Oginde, CEO, fellow CEO, the President of Africa Editors Forum, Madam Presidente, mwenye unaogopa CEOs, very strange, directors of EACC and members of the fourth estate, Amjambo. This is a unique meeting in that it's a meeting of the people who operate from hot seats. EACC hot seats, media hot seats. And myself as the president rightly says, we get all those calls. But I think there is something about being in a place for a fairly good time. Not many things are hot nowadays. Actually, most of the calls that come and the complaints about press freedom or what the media has done or what a headline on Mombasa Road has done
They are what I will call set-piece complaints. The same thing over and over. What was Serikali thinking the media is against them, that journalists are not patriotic, and media thinking government is not being open and not collaborative and all that. If you reflect, you realize that it's a set-piece thing. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And when I see the complaints now, while I used to get a little scared a few years ago, I say it's another verse of the set piece. It all ends, and we know how it ends. But most important is a really appreciation about this meeting, that we have the guys who operate on the hot seats, while the other guys, like Joe here, will be dealing with the hot story and all that. Bona CEO, EACC, and the commissioners here, you'll be dealing with a hot file. And we have to agree that the breakfast you gave us this morning is not in vain. Because when the media highlights a very hot file, your file inapoa kidogo, you can move it a bit. Many times kuna file iko mahali ni moto kidogo, lakini ikifaulu weko kwa headline kidogo and a little story, then the pressure, while it looks like pressure to move the file, actually it's the heat of the file that allows us to move a bit, because we operate in a very charged political environment. So this collaboration is important, and it is hopefully will bear very good fruits. I will beg for a minute of silence for everyone here to reflect, because I think we have not done that as a country and as a people, the impact of fake news and disinformation on our entire ecosystem. As much as I've seen my letter forged and put all over the places, I've seen a lot of letters from yourself alleging arrests and all that, with signatures and all that, with videos and photos and all that. I think that we haven't put enough time to reflect about the impact of fake news, disinformation, malinformation, and what it can do to a country. And when we move into heightened political times, you could get into tensions in communities. By the time the truth comes, people could have done anything, especially when people know that you can incite peoples and others. So I think some way we need to reflect about that. We have seen cloned headlines, isn't it? Including cloned faces of our journalists reading alleged news and whatnot, isn't it? We could see you, Bwana Chairman, reading a speech before the media, an non-existent one, but it's still been done by AI and all that. So I think it's a reality that we have to reflect about going forward. Going back to the press freedom threats that are many, I want to say that apart from isolated cases where we get them from Mbua, Lipe, a fine 50K, the courts have not understood the provisions of the Constitution and all that, I said that it's a set piece. We know this thing. It comes and goes. They say that the work of journalism is holding those in power to account, and that means it's afflicting the comfortable. If you do your news and headlines, Joe, and nobody bothers and nobody calls you, I think it's time for you to go home and try farming. I know you're a good farmer. That is the work of journalism, really. Unless you do work and people get annoyed, then you have no work to do. And so I think when you feel there's pressure, I know we have a challenge of the finance and the dynamic market. Real journalism is there to annoy. There is no press freedom if it's not the freedom to annoy people. So if you say that we are a country that protects press freedom and all that, you must protect the right of the media to annoy those in power. If the media does its job and those in power are very happy, then we have to engage in a recruitment drive for the Public Relations Society or any other person for that matter. Allow me to mention a bit about the media fund. It's a discussion that has been going on for a while. And I will throw a proposal because with fellow CEOs here, we could have something to do. And I will do a little simplification for the media here. If we wanted to set up a media fund today in government, we have lawyers here, it is a bill, isn't it? It is titled a bill for the establishment of a media fund to protect press freedom and allow something like that, isn't it? There is established a fund known as the Media Fund or Media Diversity Fund. The headquarters of the fund shall be in Nairobi. The fund will be run by a board. appointed this and this and this and that, isn't it? For those who know legislation, it will take at least 3 or 4 years to do that. The entire establishing, if you want to throw it from government. But there is a shortcut we can take now that we are here with the CEO and the colleagues here. We could do a little fund, and through this collaboration, we could come to visit again your neighbors and see, can we put a little fund from the budget you have said that this is a fund for investigations, that a little team that is, can take the oath of secrecy so that they don't get too much. We could get a little fund from existing budgets. Then when journalists think they are pursuing a story that is fairly expensive, and it's maybe a story, say 1 or 2 counties or some complex laundering thing, they just apply to you. We could get a fund. That's within budgets, I know. We know which season we are in. And we could get a little team that explores and says, we think this is a worthy case. We allow Joe's team to pursue this story with a few 100,000 or whatever that can be. And even if we do up to 4 or 5 of those grants per year, it is possible, and it's something we can do through MOUs and all that. So that it's not saying that the fund is bad. It's knowing that, also the legislative processes, we have infancy, then we have adolescence, and then we have maturity, isn't it? I think in the big house on the hill, it's easy to go adolescence. And so you could propose a fund there. You have no control of what will come out as the final fund, isn't it? But I think with the collaboration of the people who occupy the hot seats, and I'm proposing that we try to follow that, we could try to do maybe in the next coming budget, that is something we can do within the next 3 months, say we are going to make a trial, see this fund, what can it be? The beauty of that is that we can also talk to our partners in whatever, and so that they put that fund. When we have a fund set aside beside the legislation, and we are doing piloting kidogo kidogo, something we can get moving in the next 60 to 90 days while pursuing the bigger bill thing, because public participation. Those who know this, we can be here for a while. Yet we can practically create a fund to help these journalists in here pursue certain hot stories based on a certain criteria that we set, isn't it? And it's very easy to get certain people up. I know we have good partners with the UN Office on Drug and Crime and other, who can easily, chip in on something that is already moving. It's always very easy to fuel a moving train than give people a proposal that you want to build a railway line. We've been discussing about an SGR line to Busia for a while. But if you said you have a train and you want to move to buy an executive coach, it can take less time. That's just a proposal. And I think it's something that we can, as you go into the plenary, maybe, but if we agree to pursue that, the same delegation that came to your office can meet again, so that when chairman and commissioners and yourself go to parliament in the next day, you could defend that vote line, so that it's really practical. And for that is something practical from 1st of July, if we follow that route as we pursue the other longer one. And also it helps us to pilot the idea that is it possible for a strategic MOU for certain agencies to finance certain deep dive stories, which we hear people saying are fairly expensive, apart from the logistics of getting the story, legal provision to stop our journalists from being put in cells and fined a few thousands all the time, safe houses because people must engage in strategic camouflage and all that, and strategic sharing of documents. I think those are matters that we could pursue. So I urge that, we're very happy about this meeting and the sharing. I urge that we move now from words to action and see what we can do so that we all can act and save our country. Senior Joe says that not many people who steal funds want to say that they stole. I am not very sure. I will be consulting Bishop again what it means if I can work very hard and earn some money, whether I can pour the money on tables, in bags, in a room, and take photos and post on social media. I don't know what that is, whether it's a New Gonjwa, I do not know who you want to impress, because I don't think that I can work very hard for my money, win a tender, build a road, or do what. Na nikilipwa niweke pesa kwa bag, nipigwe picha niweke Instagram. So maybe it depends on whether people saying yes, I stole, or people saying I have a lot of money which cannot fit in the bank, so it fits around bags and I have to walk around with it. So I really appreciate and congratulate the editors and EACC for this collaboration, and hope that we really get practical, doable and actionable points from this. You know, even if we did 5, 6 grants per year, and 4 of them ended up with strategic convictions of real files, being we will sit here a few days after April Fool's Day next year and say, look here, when we sat here, we had started this journey and look at what we have done, isn't it? So I urge that we think about it, put everything in motion, and then not lose sight of the antelope. That means that the big media fund, isn't it? But see what we can activate kesho kutwa in May, June, ama kama chair na CEO mnaona mwaka unaisha na kuna kafandi kadogo kanaweza run story before June 30th. There are certain practicals. So when you see me talk to CEO, editors, msijali, it's accounting officers, kuna line ingine tunajua but it's about activating, I mean, budgeting cycles, when you go to parliament and all that. It's different going to parliament with a bill to establish a media fund, and it's different getting an MOU within 2 weeks to do a thing or two. So I wish you all the best in the deliberations, and now please allow me to invite Bwana CEO, EACC, to come and give us remarks. Madam President, wacha nichukue kazi yako kidogo. Asante sana. Karibu.
Yeah, so I think Bwana Omoyo is a very intelligent person. And no wonder he has 2 similar names. I think people who have 2 similar names are special people maybe. So what he's suggesting actually makes a lot of sense. And he understands the dynamics. So as accounting officers, we will talk and see what can happen and what cannot happen. But as we sit here today, we know the law in terms of the assets recovered are supposed to be handed over to Treasury. Even us, we would have wished actually to utilize some of the fund that we recover, but unfortunately that is the way the law is. And as he had indicated, it takes a while to amend a legislation. So, but we will talk. That doesn't close the door. We will talk and see how we can manage some of these things. Next, let me just say one thing that I want to share with you people is in today's Star newspaper, there is a headline which some of you may have seen, some of you may not have seen, but for those of us who have an interest in that area, we read it in the morning, and it is one of the things that for a while we've been trying actually to explain to the senators, and it is good that it has come up. The only thing that the journalists should have done is to go further and know how we can solve that problem. Because what the newspaper headline says is nothing for projects as pay gobbles up billions. Here they're talking about the county governments. And for a while, we've actually been commending and saying the problem we have at the county governments is mainly due to the issue of human resource management, where the governor has the leeway to hire as many people as possible, whether they are qualified or not. And we all know that an institution is as good as the people who run it. So if the recruitment, the transfers, the deployment is all not done professionally, then definitely you don't expect a good product. So I want to congratulate whoever did that story and urge him to go further and find out what is the solution to that problem. We have recommended few solutions, one of them being that should we have one centralized public Service Board, as opposed to having 47 public service boards. We know in the national government or in the national structure, we have the commission, the Public Service Commission. Could we have something similar to that so that we remove the control of employment, deployment, transfers from the county governor to a central body that actually manages all the staff within the public, within the county public service boards, so that we have a more professional, more engaged, more mixed. Like today, again, I was just listening to one of the news, radios, news on one of the radio stations, and there is one MCA, I think from Bungoma, who was saying in their county, everybody in the finance department comes from the same locality, from the same. Whereas we know there are even more serious areas where you have the finance and the procurement departments managed by people from the same family. Now, that is the situation we are dealing with. At the EACC, of course, our job is to investigate, arrest, and charge when the prosecutor gives us the consent to charge. But don't you think as a country, after 12 years or so of experimenting with the county governments, we need to come up with situations where we come up with solutions as opposed to firefighting? And I think one major solution that we have proposed before is the issue of having one centralized county government public service board, which of course many people do not like, but I think it is something that is worth trying so that we get out of this situation where we keep on arresting people and we end up in a workable situation where the county governments are able to deliver on the mandates that they have been appointed or elected to do. So on the other issues, we will engage them during the plenary, because it will take a while for us to deal with all the issues that were raised. Very valid points from Joe Ageo, from Churchill, from the president, but some of them we will deal with them at the plenary because I have a very short speech which I wanted to read before we move on to the next assignment. First, let me adapt the protocol that has already been established so as to save us time. And I just want to, first of all, say that it is a great honor to be here today for yet another opportunity to engage with the media, a critical partner in our shared mission to enhance integrity, transparency, and accountability in our beloved country. This is our third engagement at the Kenya Editor Guild Press Club, but a first in my tenure as the Secretary/CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I acknowledge the continued good working relationship the Commission has with the media sector. The media undeniably plays a pivotal role in shaping the public discourse, exposing wrongdoings, and holding both individuals and institutions accountable. In the fight against corruption, the media acts as both a powerful ally and a vigilant watchdog. For this reason, strengthening our partnership with the media is crucial in ensuring that we build a society grounded in honesty, fairness, and justice. The theme of today's engagement is turning the tide from stolen assets to public good. The theme seeks to highlight the crucial link between the Commission's strategic focus on asset tracing and recovery and the utilization of the recovered assets for the greater public good. As we unpack enforcement, promotion of ethics and integrity, prevention of corruption and unethical practices, education, training, and public awareness. Ladies and gentlemen, The Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act of 2003 mandates the EACC to recover corruptly acquired assets, unexplained assets, and proceeds of corruption. This is achieved through criminal confiscation, non-conviction-based confiscation, alternative dispute resolution, and surrender. The rationale behind the asset recovery is to ensure that the corrupt do not profit from their corrupt conduct. Its deterrent effect cannot, therefore, be gainsaid. This, among others, has informed the paradigm shift by the Commission to focus on recovery of proceeds of crime. Accordingly, in the last 5 years, the EACC has traced and recovered corruptly acquired and unexplained assets with an estimated value of 28 billion Kenya shillings. These assets have since been restored for public use. You will recall that in September last year, the Commission handed over landed properties valued at Kenya shillings 5 billion and the cash assets worth 514 million to the beneficial public entities in a ceremony that was presided over by His Excellency the President. Additionally, the Commission is currently pursuing over 400 cases at various stages of trial for forfeiture of corruptly acquired assets estimated at Kenya shillings 50 billion Kenya shillings. During my assumption of office, I made an undertaking that the Commission will prioritize the following interventions to bolster the fight against corruption. 1, asset tracing, recovery, and forfeiture of unexplained assets. As mentioned here above, the objective of the strategy is 1, to trace and recover unexplained assets, restitute the recovered assets to the public, and to create a deterrence. Number 2 in the list was monitoring capital-intensive projects. As a strategic intervention, this approach is intended to 1, identify corruption loopholes in the major projects, monitor budget absorption and application, undertake timely investigative interventions on detected corruption, and finally to create deterrence for misappropriation of public funds. 3 in the list was enhance integrity testing at service points. The Commission has observed increasing cases of bribery at service delivery points, which negatively impacts the ability of government to provide efficient and effective services at affordable costs. To curb the vice, the Commission will intensify integrity testing programs to detect and prevent bribery at service delivery points, thus restoring confidence in the public sector. 4th is the strengthening compliance with Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. The Commission will continue to advocate for reforms to strengthen the policy and legislative framework for enforcement of Chapter 6 of our Constitution, such as the pending Conflict of Interest Bill 2023 and the Anti-Corruption Laws Amendment Bill 2025. 5 on the list is training and capacity building. Training is a crucial component due to the complex and evolving nature of corruption. To ensure continued effectiveness, the Corruption will enhance the capacity of the National Integrity Academy to provide specialized and structured courses on ethics and anti-corruption. Let me add here that when your president visited us at Integrity Center, one of the things we discussed was how can we train the journalists who report on crime and also court reporters, for them to understand what it takes to go through, a corruption investigation, and where does the Commission's role end, and where does the prosecutor's role start, and where does the court's role start. And we are now, because we have a fully fledged academy, and we have, we have courses which have already drawn the curriculum. I think all that it takes is just to find the funding, and then we work with your president so that we are able to train a few of you, or as much as we can. So that is something under discussion. We are discussing that, and of course, we would want to do that. So, I just want to say that the director of the academy is right there. Madam, you can stand up just to confirm that we really have an academy. Thank you. So sixth is the technology as enabler of institutional efficiency. Technology has become a powerful tool in the fight against corruption, enhancing transparency and accountability. And I think this is an area where I think Joe Ageo mentioned what AI can do. Even Omoyo talked about it. And we also don't want to be left behind. That is something we really want to embark on seriously. So I invite you, the media, to work closely with us, for together we can ensure that corruption does not rob our nation of a bright future. We are exploring opportunities to have regular and structured engagement with the media, including training and capacity building programs, which I've just mentioned. On that note, let me now introduce a very key person to our partnership. Let me introduce Mr. Stephen Karuga. Stephen, you can just stand up and wave. Yeah, Mr. Karuga is the newly appointed head of corporate affairs and communication. He's a lawyer by profession. He was a prosecutor at the ODPP's office. He was also working at the judiciary as a researcher. So he's he's actually a he's experienced in that field. So those areas that you people were, not sure about, just sit down, Stephen. That is it legal to do this, or is it illegal to do this, or how do we go about these issues? Please get in touch with Karuga. Mr. Karuga will help you. And that is mainly why we really appointed him to take that seat. So let me reiterate that the fight against corruption cannot be won by EACC alone. It is a collective effort that requires the support of every sector of our society. Consequently, I invite the media to continue being a vanguard in championing a corruption-free society. So thank you very much, and I think I deserve a clap. So at that note, I now want to invite my chairperson. When Omoyo was talking about the hot seats and all those, surely you all know EACC CEO's office is a very hot seat. But the good thing about that seat is I have a chairperson who can actually stand up at any moment, to make things a bit cooler, whether it is by action or by prayer. So, so let me at this juncture invite my chairperson, Dr. David Oginde, to give his keynote address.
Thank you very much, CEO, for the remarks and also for inviting me to take up this stand. I want to greet you all. Good morning. I think we are still in the morning. Yes, it is a few more minutes before noon. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's really a privilege for me to be here and for us as EACC to have this consultation because the media plays a very critical role. And just seeing the number and the status of the people who have graced this occasion from the media, it tells us that you have taken this very, very seriously. There are at least two sitting next to one of them, and the other one is right there. That shows you that it is serious. and this has been taken seriously. Normally when the president goes to a function, it indicates at what level you are operating. So today I know I'm operating at a very high level in the media industry. So thank you very much. The CEOs who are also here, thank you for coming and for the comments that you have made. We have noted them. I also want to thank our team from EACC, the other people from the rest of the media industry. We appreciate each and every one of you. My good friend, Joageo, thank you for those kind remarks that you made. And all of us, we want to appreciate each and every one of you. Let me start by acknowledging how important this kind of a gathering is and the significance it has in the fight against corruption, and particularly in the prevention side. I've told some people, and you may have heard me say, when I was a young boy in primary school, my brother, eldest brother, had a big maize farm. And in the months of June to August, when the maize is just getting ready, and towards August, when we were also out of school, one of the jobs that he gave me, it is not a job because I was not paid. One of the tasks that I had was to go and watch over his maize plantation, because where we had planted maize was around a forested area, and there were many monkeys, and they would come to harvest where they had not planted, and they would do a very good job of it if you did nothing. So mine was to go there together with my cousin and a nephew from morning to evening, being there to ensure that the monkeys do not take away the maize. And I did this for a few years. You try to chase them from this corner, you find they have gone to this other corner. So we had to devise strategies, and among the strategies we devised was to put up scarecrows that could, flap in the wind, and they think there's somebody there. But monkeys are also clever. Very soon they see this person is not moving, so they will realize that this may not be a real person. So you find them eating maize right under your scarecrow, because they have soon discovered. I didn't know that this is a job I would do in my retirement, in a more serious way, to now take care of Kenyans' maize farm, where there are many monkeys who are trying to get the most out of it where they have not planted. And we are trying to engage whatever strategies that we can get, including scarecrows. But they soon discover that those are not real ones, and they just ignore them. One of the strategies that I think, as had mentioned by one of us here, monkeys don't like being exposed. The real monkeys and the other monkeys. So the media plays a very critical role in ensuring that those who want to harvest where they have not planted are exposed. And that's why they will run away. And the media, therefore, plays a very, very key role in our fight against corruption and our preservation of the assets of the country. Asset recovery is a significant effort in our fight against corruption, as it seeks to remove the benefit of corruption. And we believe that if we are very successful in asset recovery, many people will be dissuaded from going in this way, because it takes a lot of work to be corrupt. believe it or not. It is not easy for us who sit in the committees where we review how individuals planned, prepared, and executed. You realize that these people put in a lot of work, and sometimes very risky work. So if at the end of the day, they are not able to benefit from their work, that in itself would act as a sense of deterrent for a number of people, not all of them, for a number of people. And so asset recovery is very, very critical in our work. Let me highlight the importance of harnessing our collective synergy in the recovery of stolen assets. The public has a critical role in whistleblowing, reporting, and playing vigilance on governance and accountability wherever they are. And a number of people who do send us information of what they have seen, they have heard, and we do act on that information that is sent to us. The media plays a public watchdog role through investigative journalism that has been talked about, creating awareness of what may be happening, and you have done an excellent job, I would say, especially in mega corruption. As you know, as an institution, EACC has a whole legal process to follow before we deal with any corrupt case and bring it to its conclusion. But the role that you play as media in bringing out the details and activities and things that have been done in the background is a much faster route in dealing with corruption than the one that we play. And so you really do help us in creating that awareness, whistleblowing, exposing things that have happened or are happening, so that there's accountability among those people, among our people, so that action can be taken. Public institutions like ours and others have the responsibility of monitoring, investigation, prevention, prosecution, and recovery, and we work together towards ensuring that assets that have been stolen or are about to be stolen are protected from thieving hands. We also, some of us mentioned earlier, the restealing of assets that have been recovered. And so we have asset management and monitoring so that assets that have been stolen are not, rather have been recovered, are not again stolen. And it's a critical role that we have to play. Corruption is a very bad thing. It's just that we as Kenyans have not really come to appreciate what it is. Some of the previous speakers pointed out some of the consequences of corruption in a country. Every year, Transparency International puts out a global ranking on the Corruption Perception Index, showing how every country is perceived in as far as the practice of corruption is concerned. Remember, it is perceived, not necessarily the real thing. But that perception drives a lot of decision-making at a global level. That perception determines whether an investor will come to invest in your country or goes to another country. That perception determines whether one who wanted to support you will support you or go to another place. So it is not just something that happens every year. It is a very critical barometer that indicates how healthy a nation is in as far as matters corruption are concerned. And very few people would want to invest in a country that is on the sick bed in as far as corruption is concerned. In Kenya, we have been trailing on this index for a very long time. In 2021, we were positioned at number 128 out of 180 countries with a score of 30%, where the higher the percentage, the better you are doing. The higher the number, the worse you are doing. So when you're 128 out of 180, you should not be clapping because we should be added to number 1, okay? So we were ranked at 128 in 2021. In 2022, we made some good improvement, came to 123 out of 180 with a score of 32. In 2023, we were at 126. We fell back and with a score of 31. And last year, we are 121 out of 180 with a score of 32. We also do our own survey, just find out how we are doing and what people are saying about corruption in Kenya under what we call the National Ethics and Corruption Survey conducted by EACC. In 2023, it indicated that bribery had increased and become a great challenge. In fact, 57% of those interviewed said bribery is the biggest challenge in Kenya. 57.3, that's more than half of the people, almost 60%. The survey further revealed that the levels of bribery had also increased from an average of 5,800 in 2021 to 6,800 in 2022 to a whopping 11,600 in 2023. What it means is that people are getting bolder in what they are asking for. They are making life much harder for Kenyans. The impact of this is significant. As I've said, it reduces public confidence in government institutions. It increases the cost of doing business. It increases unemployment. It increases citizen apathy. And it contributes to the lack of basic services that are offered to the public. And therefore, you hear the outcry of many, many Kenyans in as far as this issue of corruption is concerned. Therefore, it is important that all of us do what we can in order to reduce, if not totally eliminate, this thing called corruption. From the figures, the data that I gave, you may have noticed that we have been making some slight improvement in our ranking in the last 5 years, moving from position 128 in 2021 to 121 in 2024, which is last year. That is good improvement, but it is not as high as we would want it to be. Notably, we made a 5 positions improvement between 2023 and 2024. However, we are still very far from the global average of 50%. Our hope in EACC and my hope as a chair of this organization, which I chaired, or rather shared when I became chair, is that this index should come below 100 at the very minimum. Because the lower it comes, or is it the higher, you know, the less the figure, but the higher the ranking, the better perception it gives to everybody. And in actual fact, it indicates that we are winning the war on corruption. And we would need to work together to ensure that we are doing better in this because this is like an external examiner. It cannot be, they cannot be bribed to give us better ranking. As Kenyans are prone, even in primary school, you want your child to get more marks, you go and see the teacher. And we were told before the Matiang'i days that schools just used to go to NEC and negotiate, give me 100 A's. Another one says, give me 50 A's, and they pay the relevant amount, and they were given. This one, you cannot go and say, put us at number 50, and we will pay you something. Maybe Kenyans will think of a way how we can do that. We are a very innovative people when it comes to some of these things. But it is a good indicator as to how we are performing as a nation. And we believe that the media has a significant role in the promotion of public interest, prudent use of public resources, good governance, accountability, transparency, and just communicating the right message. Because there's a general apathy among Kenyans. There's a general negativism, especially through social media, about the country. And there's no way we can build ourselves on such negativity. You know that if you surround yourself with toxic people who are always just talking about negative things and how bad things are and how bad you cannot and how bad, you cannot proceed and progress yourself. And whereas some of the things that we say are facts and are based on facts, we need as a nation to take a more positive outlook to life and see how we can deal with our challenges in a manner that then also encourages us to do our work in a very positive environment. The call by Mr. Churchill for us to establish a media, to support media in their work, in my view, is a very appropriate call. It was repeated and echoed by Zubeida, giving us various areas in which we can partner together in making sure that this happens. Joe Ageo did an excellent job in now just breaking it down for us in those PowerPoints. And I believe that if we work together, we can see how some of these things can be done so that we can begin to turn the tide of corruption in this country and make this country a better place. I've told people over and over again, you have only one country. And if we destroy this country, wherever you will go, you will be a refugee. That's all. Now, those people who thought they would fly to America, things are getting very bad there. And I thank God. I seriously thank God. I wish all the countries of the world could do that so that we can come back here and build our country. There is no other nation we have, whether it is good or bad. Let's make this the best country that it can be. And let's deal with the monkeys that are stealing from our farms. We can do it if we put our heads together and we put our hearts together. I believe we can deal with the monkeys and make this country a very, very good place that we will now be denying people visa when they want to come to spoil our crop. You know, they'll be pleading with us. Please give us a visa. But now, we even had to open our doors and say, come, everybody. It is, if you look at the world today, people are in that place where they're beginning to look inward. Even nations that were previously very open. I remember my very first visit to Europe. I didn't need a visa. You just get your ticket and you go. And I remember going to UK, I went to Germany, I went to Austria as a young man, no visa for any of them. That's why just the name you say you're a Kenyan was the visa. No? Now I think being a Kenyan is the anti-visa. We can restore our dignity. We can restore ourselves. We can improve our ranking, and we need to double our efforts in the fight against corruption, economic crimes, and unethical conduct. This can be enhanced by our working together, strengthening our institutional frameworks, ensuring independence and accountability, strengthening prevention, enhancing asset recovery, automation of government systems. We are actually very happy that the government is now launching a digital procurement system that will make procurement more transparent, and we as EACC have been invited to be part of that process so that we can better monitor how procurement within government is happening. And let me conclude by just reminding us that if we work together, we will win this war. But if we work separately and work against each other, then the monkeys will take advantage of us. Because as you fight one another, they will be busy eating at another corner. I want to thank our media fraternity for the relentless work that you do. And those proposals that have been made, I think, are good conversation starters that we can look at. Very, I would say, out-of-the-box thinking, very creative, innovative thinking that can help us move this needle against corruption. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Let's clap for the Dr. Reverend.
Dr. Jinde, I think, is it clap for you or you deserve a clap? It's a bit of semantics. So, we've come to that point and listened to the speeches, but I just like the anecdote that you had about monkeys. You watched the monkeys eating the product and everything else. And I hope when you're in the field there, what did you eat to stay?
Brazenly. They pick, actually they demand, and I'm talking about the police officers, the traffic police officers. It's one of those, is that area that has got, is replete with very many monkeys. And I think it's one area that would interest you and interest all of us. So that I know it from the preparations, from the presidents have spoken, the CEOs have spoken, the chairpersons have spoken. But one thing they've left here is that as I stand here, this place feels very hot. I think you left the heat from your seats here. And I'm going, because we have got time to manage, I'm going to make very deliberate ways in the way we are going to do plenary interventions.
The editors have spoken, the presidents have spoken, Editor Maduong Joe has spoken on behalf of the editors.
Work throughout, even watching the news and seeing everything happen in our nation, we've been following up, and you're doing a commendable job. And as I stand here, I'd like to give a case in point of what I've heard from the people on ground. People are asking, could it be that with the issue of Ferdinand Waititu, could it be that he's a critic of the government and that's why he's behind bars? And I'll also give another case in point. The MP for Sirisia, that is John Waluke, we've seen that he went for trial against the corruption cases that are on him. The trial court, the High Court, and the Court of Appeal proved him guilty, but the Supreme Court overturned his ruling. This leaves us to ask, could it be that the EACC and the Supreme Court have loopholes that are being exploited? Now, as I turn to the media, as a young budding journalist, I also turn my attention to the media, and I'd love to ask us, we've been granted mandate and rights by our constitutions to have media press going on. But the question leaves, with the current happenings in our nation, are we really doing what we're supposed to be? Are we giving sweepish news? And sorry about that. I'm a little bit nervous, forgive me for that. I've observed that later on, Kenyans have been asking, we as the Kenyan media, are we really doing what we're supposed to? Or we're doing things and leaving a loophole that is being exploited, whereby a narrative shifts from being for the better good to the political parties? That, I leave it to each and every one of us to answer the question and to know where we need to do. Also, I'd love to give a classical example that has been given, and that is on the traffic police officers. I commute from home every single day, and along Kiambu Road, there's a place at the Kenya Institute Polytechnic. They're cops. I see them pull people aside, and the first thing I see the driver do is get into their pockets, fold something small, as my lecturer, Wanyama Chibusiri, loves to say, it's called mulungula. That is bribe. It's a Swahili word. I see them fold and give them to eat, and I ask, where all of us were quiet in that matatu, do we really hold each other accountable? No, we don't. We are all okay. Because as long as you get the small thing and move, that's okay for you. I'd love, as we go out there, please, as we hold our leaders and even the people in higher and senior positions, let's also hold our society accountable for our actions. Once again, I'm Marion Wanjiku Ndishu, and thank you.
Let's appreciate her better. Those are the Gen Zs speaking, and they tell it as it is.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ernest Mudhini. I'm a colleague at Leicester University. I think I'm the only president who hasn't spoken, so on that. I am a president of, it's a new society. It's called Journalism Students Association of Kenya. So I'm the current president there. So first of all, thank you for this chance. To the EACC officials, the KEGO officials, and others, I hope that you're having a good afternoon. It's good I'm in this room. Probably I've interacted with some of the officials who have spoken. I'm Zubeida. I don't think you'll remember me, but back in high school, you came to Nkobo High School. I think you know it. I was still a student there. And you told us that you're going to help us to create a digital page. I'm still waiting for the digital page. Yeah, I was still in Form 3. And also... Consider it done. Okay. And also, Mr. Churchill, you came to my class, I think a few weeks ago. It was a very interactive session, so thank you very much. As my colleague has said, the outcome. So during that time, I was planning for an event, the First Media Annual Summit. He helped me in terms of getting people to attend the summit. It was our first event, which we did in MKU Town Campus, just around the street. Yeah, so helped me very much. Thank you, sir. So we have been able to get a lot as the Gen Z students, together with my colleague here, Marion. I would love to echo some of the things that I've heard from our CEO of EACC. He has said that we should prioritize fight against corruption, and that an institution is as good as the people who run it. And also the take that the chairperson David Oginde has given about the monkeys. Just funny enough, as I was coming in the morning, just outside here, there was an Uber. I think it parked on the wrong place. Then the kanjo was like, talk up, was banging on the door, and the Uber driver just lowered the window, gave him the 50 shillings, and after that, he was very, very happy. So, so it shows that they're still active and they're still doing their job. And this will make me pose this question to you. In light to the actions that the EACC is doing regarding the financial, the 2024 finance bill, remember the last year. So I would love to pose this to the EACC. What actions has the EACC taken regarding the killings of Gen Z protesters during the Reject Finance Bill demonstrations, particularly in investigations and holding the officers involved accountable? During the Gen Z protests last year, we lost some few Gen Zs due to the protest. There are still some abductions issues that are still there, so probably they need to be investigated on that issue. And also, in light to what is happening right now, I love probably to go to this controversial person, Morara Kebaso, where he does this thing of exposing on stalled government projects. So what actions has the EACC taken to investigate or address the concerns he has raised? For example, there is the Kamarini Stadium in Elgeyo Marakwet, and also this to also allow to post to the media. So how are you contributing to the recovery of these stolen assets? Are there specific strategies that the media professionals are adopting to ensure greater accountability from the public? That's all the time I had. Thank you.
Let's appreciate them better. They have said, at least Dr. Reverend, they have said that EACC is not one of those scarecrows that guys begin to, they've said it. You're doing a good work, a good job, and thank you. Let's appreciate them again, because it's so encouraging to see the young people, the people we are training, mentoring as editors at the Kenya Editors Guild, as the next generation editors. And for me, this is who they are, and there's a lot of hope. So I want to have an open mic now. If you want to say something, somebody to circulate the mic, just for interventions. We want to be very specific before we respond, because we'll have people to respond. Who is going to take the mic around? Just raise your hand. Yes, there's somebody at that end. As the mic gets to you say your name, the institution, and then you kiss. You kiss. I insist that you kiss. I saw a young man saying that this Mzungu way of saying kissing in the rain is a fallacy. Okay? So let's keep it short and sharp. The name there. But as it gets there, I like what Joe Ageyo said, that a free press is the best defense to the nation, to the fight against corruption. I think that is profound. I like what also Churchill said about without journalism, the graft would thrive in darkness. Our work is to shine the light and make sure that we follow them. We hope that we don't run out of batteries. The Genesis have asked that we could drop the torch, but we keep shining it. Your question, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm David Kagina with K24. The Commission is doing a great job in terms of asset recovery and tracing. The numbers are in billions. That's very impressive. But looking at last year, when it comes to court, we had around 45 criminal cases that were completed with 24 acquittals and 9 withdrawals. In the spirit, or rather in the language of monkeys, how is it that it's easier to pick the maize from the monkeys, but it's becoming harder to make the monkeys accountable for their actions?
Thank you very much. That is he has kissed aptly. Who is next? I hope, Muya, you are picking the names of the officers who will respond to it. Who is next? On that table, Mwalimu Chebusiri, your students have done well.
Habari zenu.
Mzuri.
Tell your neighbor, use wisdom to fight corruption. I'm not saying the CEO EACC. Please tell Ageyo, use wisdom to fight corruption. I have two questions. One, about the monkeys that we're talking about. And this one is in light with trainings. That today, several years back, when I was still in the media, I went somewhere to investigate a corruption case. I'm not saying that person, I hope ameniona. And it was a regional boss. And we wanted information. Lakini akasema hapana, tuongee na waandishi wa habari. Waandishi wa habari, write a letter, iende huko, tupewe nafasi, ndio tufanye nini? Ndio tuongee na wewe. And these editors will tell you, news is perishable. And then another thing that I'm getting from that is that this training that you'll be doing to our reporters, let it be a two-way, so that you understand how the media operates. The media is not a conveyor belt. Remember, the media is the fourth estate. We watch against the judiciary, legislature, and the executive. And therefore, and we even watch against EACC. So tukiandika, tafadhali lazima tuelewane. Ya pili, why don't we mention the people, the organizations that we are recovering this money from, so that we share them out there as much as we've recovered from them. We make it public, so that nikiona Ageyo aliba pesa na namwona anafanya hayo mambo ajulikane. It's just a proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Let's appreciate. Next, who is next? I'm going to take 4 interventions, and then.
My name is Johnston Aronya, cameraman KBC. Mimi naomba mkubwa wa EACC wakora wakifika kotini wana make sure wamefunika hood, wamefunika pande hii, huwezi kumuona uso. Huwezi kutofautisha huyu ndiye alikwenda kotini ama ni huyu. Wakitoka nje kotini kwa kupeleka cell, familia wanakuja mbele na wote ni wako, familia wako mbele, huwezi pata picha ya mtu. Huwezi tangazo useme fulani ameenda kotini, kesi ya koti inakuwa ngumu sana kuonyesha wala culprit bila wanafanya makosa. Ni hata mmoja.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll respond to those questions, the concerns, and then we can take other 2 more before we go. So, from the media, Joe, you would like to respond to the questions, what we are doing right now, and how we are upping the game? Or the Madam President? Oh, there are many editors. Which editor? I'm going to have to pick. I'm going to have to pick. Volunteer before I mention your name. Peter Wakaba. Peter Wakaba. Give him the mic.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to have to part of what was in the presentation earlier, that it is as important to be seen to be fighting corruption as the fight itself, hence the importance of the media. If you think back to what Ken has said about policemen, when Kenyans drive anywhere during the day, early in the morning or whenever you're on the road and you see the brazen behavior by our people in uniform, it actually walks the fight backwards. And I think it also lends credence to the feeling that the fight is lost, that sort of thing. If you listen to we call it banter, the conversation at the grassroots, on the ground, on the streets. I was walking behind two gentlemen who were discussing soccer, and they were discussing the gate takings recently, and the accounting that had been done by match and team officials. And they were asking whether the accounting put out had been right, because there was some double accounting somewhere. And they were saying, hata ingekuwa mimi bado ningekula hiyo pesa. Why? Because at the point where most Kenyans are today, they are doing the math in their heads of saying, if I'm in this position, should I take this money, should I not? So first it points to a sort of lacuna in terms of I'll say the institutions, the structure, the rules, the governance that's in place to ensure the property of this material. So for me, I think that the fight starts at the place where when you put someone in a position of authority and who's actually able to handle public cash, public goods, public finances, what are the structures in place to ensure that this person actually delivers? So for me, again, the corporate governance aspect is just as important. So what are the efforts that organizations such as the EACC constantly carry out in terms of education, training, and even in the legwork to seal the new loopholes as they come along? Or if you are a software person, you'll keep seeing updates to sort out either bugs or loopholes that hackers have discovered in this software. So are we debugging our anti-corruption software regularly?
Thank you, thank you. Actually, want to take a take before you, just a quick take. People in the kitchen, eh? So we will do that, but I'm reminded, as Peter was saying, that there was something that we have all talked about this morning, the role of investigation, investigative journalism. That's our work. We have to be vigilant, and we have to keep telling the story. There's something that we used to call follow-up stories. We now do stories and the story dies that day, but keeping track of the story, knowing if somebody was convicted, is taken to court, where is he now? That example that was raised by Marion about Waititu, let's mention it because it was in the public limelight. How many of us as media have even gone to find out what is going on? As the last photo we saw him was on social media, parking somewhere in the library. Is there another story that we are not seeing? Going behind the story. So what? He's been convicted. Do we follow the stories to conclusion? That is our challenge as media. The follow-ups, you investigate follow-ups, and keep, there is something we used to call shaming, list of shame. We keep pointing it out. That's within us, but our vigilance has to be upped. Our training has to be done better. That's why we are talking about what we're calling the sustainability fund, to finance that investigation, to keep those journalists go following the story, to to ensure that there is protection for journalists. That starts from our media houses to the newsrooms, from our media houses to the national laws. How do we cover? I was very sad to hear this morning that a journalist being forced to reveal the source. And I think for me, it is important that EACC also gets up in this matter and says, where is this point where a journalist who has done a good story is being forced and being punished for removing the monkeys? And as EACC CEO comes to respond, that thing of covering the people, where is the law? Why do they carry hoodies to the courts? Why do they carry hoodies? How does that prevent them? You want to respond, then we can take chair. I think it's important. You would invite.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think I want to thank the two students for those very valid observations. And let me first of all say that the problem with the traffic police is, I think, something that is known across the country. And what we have done are two approaches. One, of course, the law enforcement bit goes on, where if we get information on officers receiving bribe, we arrest them and send the files to the DPP for prosecution. That is ongoing. But the most important thing that happened within this year is the issue of doing a systems review for the National Police Service. And I think here, publicly, I just want to commend the current Inspector General of Police for agreeing to partner with us so that we are able to go into the systems and procedures of the National Police Service and identify what are the problematic areas, so that out of the recommendations that the Commission makes, the police are able now to identify how to rectify those problems. And the Director of Preventive Services, Mr. Vincent Okongo, and his team are right now working on that. And we are hoping by May they will be done with that assignment. And we will now, within the year, submit a report to the police, identifying the problematic areas and recommending to them what they can do. So that, I want to leave it at that. Then I think the issue, let me also deal with a few, then I invite my chairperson to deal with the remaining ones. There was a question asked by a journalist from K24 on why do we have successes in asset tracing and recovery and we don't get hold of those people who steal the assets in terms of the criminal prosecutions. Two reasons. One, the asset tracing and recovery, as you may know, is a civil process. The burden of proof in a civil process is slightly lower than the proof in a criminal process. But the most important one is that for asset tracing, asset recovery, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission can approach the court on its own upon identifying and giving the person the right to respond on the allegations. The EACC is at liberty to file report independently without going through any other agency. As for criminal prosecutions, you will note that we forward the files to the Director of Public Prosecution, who can decide either to charge or not to charge, because those are his constitutional mandate and we cannot question. So, and then in criminal cases, from the DPP, they progress to the judiciary, to the courts that will also look into the matters and make independent decisions. The names of the suspects we recover assets from, it is public knowledge. And I think those are some of the trainings we want to do we want to have with the journalists and the reporters. When we file matters in court, all the parties are in that particular, the documents we'll file in court. Who we are wanting to recover the assets from, and why we want to do that, and what evidence we have. So basically, if you go to the court records, you will find all this. But again, you can also approach us. Once a matter is in court, it is a public matter. So there will be nothing like, prejudicial, unless, of course, we want to comment on the matters as it affects the progression or the process in court. So let me leave the rest for our chairperson to address, so that some of those that are a bit political, like why Gen Z's issues, the chair can address that.
Thank you, CEO. I can see how I make your life better. Let me start with the Gen Z issue. What has the commission done? Why is it not done? That one is the easiest to answer. It is not in our mandate to deal with that particular issue. That is a DCI issue. Is the Director of Criminal Investigations to investigate and find out what happened, how did it happen, why did it happen, and so on. Ours is primarily dealing with matters of economic crimes, corruption, people who have stolen public funds. That is where we are. So whether you're a Gen Z or Amze and you have stolen public funds, will come for you. That is where our mandate ends. So it is not in our line, and therefore you'll not find us pursuing those kinds of things. There was the issue of Waititu, which I think CEO also left for me. The very interesting thing about corruption, like somebody said earlier, nobody wants to be known to be a thief. And when they are caught, they will find all kinds of reasons and excuses and explanations as to why they were caught. I have not found anybody since I joined EACC. It's now going to just over 2 years. I have not found anybody who has said they have been arrested legitimately. They always come up with a story. It's because we are in opposition, or if they're in government, it's because I've fallen off with the relevant powers, and so on and so forth. So those are the stories. So what the position we have taken as a commission is that we do our work irrespective of what people say. A monkey that is found in the farm will run after them. Whether they say, oh, we were given permission, or why did they leave the fence open, and all those things, those are not our issues. It's that you have gone for this, and therefore will follow you. So Kenyans will always want to interpret. If we had let Waititu go, they would have said, Waititu was left because of ABCD. When he's arrested because of ABCD. So when are we doing the right thing? When will EACC ever just do the good thing? If we arrest police officers for bribery, they are only going for small fish. When you go for the big guys, we will see where it will end. So it is a very thankless job. But we continue to do our work, and those of you, some people say EACC is a toothless bulldog. I say the only people who say that are people who have not been arrested by EACC. When we get to you, then you will realize you will realize how sharp the teeth are. Just by inviting people to our office, you can see how they tremble. They don't say, this is a toothless bulldog, I'll just go. No. They call all their neighbors and all the lawyers and everybody, they come. So just allow us to do the right thing. Let the law take its course. When a person steals, they don't steal for the community. They don't steal for their political parties. They steal for themselves. So let them face the consequences themselves. Something to add on what CEO has said about in the area of police. We are taking a strategy, and it's beginning to bear some fruit, where we are talking with relevant heads of different institutions and discussing this whole issue of corruption in those particular institutions, and putting our minds together and say, how should we go about it? We talked with the Chief Justice on the matter of corruption within the judiciary. She herself said, I have heard, I get reports that some of our officers, some of our judicial officers are engaged in corruption. Please go after them. Remember when we arrested the magistrate recently? It was still the same story. He is arrested because. That is okay. But you are going to see a little more happening in that space of judiciary, because the CJ has agreed to work together with us so that we can pursue that area. The police, we recently had a meeting with the IG, and we had a very candid discussion, part of it in the media, as some of you were there. How can we deal with the issue of corruption within the judiciary? And the IG gave us the mandate and said, please go after this. And he warned his people, if you are caught out there, know that I will not protect you. So again, you are going to see a little more action there. We have gone beyond just the little bribes on the streets. You may have heard that we recently went for the head of traffic in Nairobi. And we are pursuing those kinds of areas. So we want to be a little more strategic. We are talking with other heads of different institutions so that we can work together. So far, I haven't had any who have said, don't come to my place. They are all very positive about supporting us. So this, I believe, will help us in our fight against corruption. Thank you very much.
Let's appreciate Dr. Reverend David Oginde. The CEO said that you make it easier, first of all, by being there and most times praying out that heat. And thank you very much. Yeah, you do. I've picked up something that even the monkeys, there is also another mix. There's another animal another reptile that I love, that they also fish in this fishy game. When they are small, they are fish, but when they are bigger, they are monkeys. I don't know. We're giving, you say the monkeys eat our sweat, eat our products. Yes. But when they are arrested, they say we go for small fish. Yeah, exactly. When do they mutate? Is that a genetic engineering from monkeys to fish? I don't know. That is real different science. I want very quickly, because of time, there was a question on media. I want Madam President, just in 1 minute, to say to wrap it up as media, what we are doing, just in 1 minute.
Thank you. I know I'm the one standing between you and lunch, so I'll make it I'll kiss it. Oh. So I love being in the same room with Gen Zs, because they tell it as it is. They don't sugarcoat things, and we are here to hold each other to account, right? And I'm happy. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Honestly, it's kept my mind. And Nkobo Boys being in my village, I really apologize. I'll take it up now. We'll set up that website. Cindy, I promise that. And today, all these people will hold me to account if I don't do it. So I promise that I'll do it. And you asked earlier what we are doing as media. And Joe spoke about it earlier. We've been called Githeri media, all sorts of names. We've seen targeted attacks on social media. And that's because media is holding these people to account, and they don't want to be held to account. And Joe said earlier that when somebody who is stealing doesn't want to be held to account, they will always look for something to silence us. And you've seen on social media, they've tried to silence us. You've seen our numbers were shared online to threaten us, to silence us. We no longer have that freedom to express ourselves, especially on the digital platforms. But that doesn't mean that we won't do our job. Standard Group has been called all sorts of names, garbage, sewage, whatever. And that tells you that we are doing something that is rubbing people the wrong way, and that's why they're trying everything possible, doing all these targeted attacks against media, against individuals, against journalists. You've seen journalists being threatened, being arrested, being harassed out there, just because they're trying to use every means to silence us. But honestly, we'll keep doing our jobs. Last week, you saw the landmark ruling on advertising. And it has been the narrative. Every time media tells a story, they say, we would not give you advertising. We would withdraw advertising from you. And that's why we've sat together as stakeholders in media. And one, we've come up with a proposal on how we would want advertising to be done. We've also come up with a proposal on how we would want to set up the sustainability fund, because we want to generate revenue other than depending entirely on advertising. How do we generate revenue using other forms to strengthen our desks, especially investigative desks, crime desks, fact-checking desks? So that's what we are doing, so that somebody doesn't feel that they own this money, it's their money, they dictate when to use it and when not to use it. And we are happy that last week the court found them unconstitutional, because they issued 3 directives on advertising. And that's why we felt, as Kenya Media Sector Working Group, we had to go to court, because we felt this is taxpayers' money, and I'm sure most of it comes from asset recovery. So why should one dictate how that money should be used? Why should one tell other government entities how to spend the money and who to advertise with? And we're happy that Judge Lawrence Mugambi found them unconstitutional. We've gone back to court again on the issue of advertising as well, because you saw last week advertising was withdrawn from Standard Media Group. So we went back to court and we're waiting for that to be done. We were waiting for the judgment to be issued by the court. I don't want to speak much about it because it's a case that is alive in court. So we will keep telling the stories. Whether we are threatened or not, we will not shy away. And we call on all stakeholders to support us. Sometimes we feel like media is a very lonely profession. When it's us being targeted, everybody is quiet. But when all of you are being targeted, we are the loudest, So we seek for your support, because when a journalist is injured, nobody says anything, because they say you are doing your job. You are targeted because you are Githari Media, you are attacking the government, you are attacking so-and-so, you are pro-government, you are anti-government, and so on. So we call on all of us to support the media as well, because when we wake up tomorrow and we don't have media, I don't know the kind of government or the kind of country that we will have. So please keep supporting us. When our journalists are arrested and we need evidence from every EACC, or we need your experts to come and support us as witnesses, please hold our hands. Musituache kwa mata, si ndio? So we'll keep doing our job. Asanteni sana for being here today.
So let's appreciate Madam President. Very fast, for the comfort of the EACC, like when our Madam CEO was talking about, she outlined the mandate of Kenya Editors Guild, and that we speak to it, we train, we are empowering people. And one of the things that Joe mentioned, I just wanted to add, Madam President, that in one of our last press clubs, we dealt with AI. Technology is a big thing, and monkeys, to find ourselves empowered to deal with what is truth, this shifting truth. When is my truth a truth that has been technologically manufactured? So we are empowering ourselves, we are dealing with AI and other emerging issues. So the training that you've offered that through the academy, we more than welcome it. So as I do this, as Mr. Muya comes along to the way forward, I want to say that at the end of this, we will, after he gives his vote of thanks, there will be a quick photo here. We have to immortalize this occasion for the guys here, and then the lunch will be served. Please don't walk away hungry. Yeah. Mr. Muya, thank you. Aren't you clapping me or clapping for me?
Thank you, moderator, for that session. and all the speakers who have spoken. The next item in our program is the way forward. We have a joint secretariat which has been dealing with the issues which have come up. There are proposals which are going to be finalized. They are going to be shared. They are going to be dealt with. But in general, the issues which have come up can be categorized in about 5 areas. We have issues to do with securing recovered assets. There are proposals which have been given. This is to ensure that recovered assets are not again rerouted. So there are issues which have been captured around that, and those are proposals which are going to be concretized. There is an issue to do with enhanced media collaboration with EACC. It has been well captured. And again, the mechanisms on how to enhance that relationship, again, is going to be enhanced, up to and including training of journalists, which has already been pledged by the Chief Executive Officer, EACC. The modalities on how that is going to be done are going to be worked on and shared with the Kenya Editors Guild. The other issue which has been captured is to do with the security of journalists. It has been noted. And again, EACC and the media will collaborate in exploring mechanisms in how this can be best done so that good Kenyans who are doing this very difficult job, then they can have security as they continue to do this patriotic duty. The other issue which has come up is to formalize engagement between EACC and the media. Probably an MOU has been suggested so that probably future engagements can be more structured. So that has also been identified. Then another issue which has come from the presentations is the issues of media sustainability. Establishment of a media sustainability fund. Well, there will be discussions around that so that if EACC has any role to play, then of course the mechanisms will be discussed on how best that can be done. That is a summary of some of the issues which have come up from these deliberations. It is going to be summarized properly, done and shared because we have a joint team which is dealing with it, and shared between EACC and the Kenya Editors Guild to inform future interventions. Allow me at this point just to make 1 or 2 announcements before the vote of thanks is moved. Lunch has already been, we have already been told there will be lunch, so we're being guided as we walk out on how we are going to access the lunch venue. 2, this is a significant event. Therefore, EACC and KAG would want to remember this, and therefore we have just organized a plaque which we can be able to share. I will be requesting humbly the chair and CEO of EACC to present this plaque to the president and the CEO of the Kenya Editors Guild. Our team, the person who has that short plaque, you bring it forward so that it can just be exchanged to mark this significant event which we have had today. So, Farida, you bring it forward. Then I invite the chairperson EACC, the CEO EACC, the president Editors Guild, and the CEO Kenya Editors Guild to exchange this plaque. Probably you remove it from the package so that, again, there is complete transparency on what it is, the chairperson EACC and CEO will present to the president. Media, which will be the light spot here. The media, they are pointing at this spot. Yeah. President and chairperson, this is the spot which is being pointed by the media.
Yeah. Rebecca is asking how much it's worth.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay. There is a proposal by the president, which is acceptable, that we do a photo, which will bring but the commissioners of EACC, you can come, the council members of the Kenya Editors Guild, the president, Mr. Churchill, you can come forward. Then I will be requesting the hotel staff, you can come and help us to move this podium from here. Council members, commissioners, come forward. Directors of EACC, you can also join.
Watch out for the
It's very, very important. History, historical moments happen.
Our two students, you can also come forward. The chair of the court reporters and the Crime Journalists Association, you also join this thing. Churchill has volunteered to show us how to show. Yes.
In the middle of the two logos.
Oh, okay.
Middle of the two logos. Yeah, he is.
Oh,
yes, yes. Then now we'll bang ourselves around. Okay.
Thank you very much.